What started as a simple family dinner became the moment I realized the people closest to me were slowly breaking my son's spirit and expecting me to pay for it. I used to believe family meant loyalty, that no matter how exhausting, unfair, or painful things became, you stayed quiet to keep the peace. But sometimes, the hardest lesson to learn is that protecting your child matters more than protecting toxic relationships. My name is Bella, and a few weeks ago, I cut off the people I once trusted most. Today, my house is finally quiet. The locks have been changed, the passwords updated, the constant criticism, manipulation, and guilt-tripping are gone. But every time I walk through this peaceful home, I remember the night everything changed. It was supposed to be a normal Sunday dinner at my parents' house. The smell of roasted chicken filled the kitchen. Plates clattered against the table. My mother floated around pretending everything was perfect, while my father sat at the head of the table like he was delivering speeches instead of having conversations. Beside me sat my son, Leo. Leo was 8 years old, shy but incredibly intelligent. The kind of child who noticed details most adults ignored. He loved building model cars for hours at a time, carefully placing every tiny piece together with patience most grown people didn't have. He read mystery novels before bed and asked questions that caught teachers off guard. But in my family, quiet intelligence didn't get attention. Performance did. My sister Lily's daughter, Ava, was the center of everything. Ava danced competitively, and my parents treated her like a future celebrity. Every conversation somehow turned back to her recitals, her costumes, her trophies, or her bright future. And honestly, I never minded supporting them at first. When Lily started struggling financially about a year and a half earlier, I stepped in to help pay for Ava's dance tuition. It was expensive, $4,500, but I told myself family helps family. At least, that's what I believed back then. Dinner went on like usual until my father suddenly pushed his chair back and raised his wine glass. The room fell silent instantly. My mother smiled expectantly, already knowing he was about to make one of his dramatic little speeches. Lily leaned back in her chair with that smug expression she always wore whenever Ava became the topic of conversation. Then my father looked directly at Ava. "Ava is the star of this family," he announced proudly. "She's going to accomplish incredible things one day." Everyone nodded. Then his eyes shifted toward Leo. "And Leo," he said with a chuckle, "well, he's a little too quiet, isn't he?" A few people laughed. Then more joined in. It spread around the table like it was harmless entertainment. But I wasn't looking at them anymore. I was looking at my son. Leo stared down at his plate, frozen. His shoulders curled inward. His tiny hands tightened around his fork while grown adults laughed at him for simply being himself. Something inside me broke in that moment. Not loudly, not dramatically, just completely. I slowly set my fork down and looked around the table. "That's fine," I said calmly. "I'm done paying Ava's dance tuition." Silence, real silence, the kind that makes the entire room feel cold. Lily's face lost all color. My mother nearly dropped her glass. My father grabbed my arm under the table and whispered through clenched teeth, "Not here." But it was already too late. Because for the first time in years, I had stopped choosing their comfort over my son's dignity. I stood up, took Leo's hand, and walked out without another word. The drive home was painfully quiet. Streetlights passed across Leo's face as he stared out the window, thinking far too deeply for an 8-year-old child. I could tell he was replaying every laugh in his mind. When we got home, he sat at the kitchen table tracing circles into the wood with his finger. Then he quietly asked, "Am I hard to love because I'm not like Ava?" That question shattered me. No child should ever wonder if they are lovable because adults made them feel small. I immediately pulled him into my arms. "No, baby," I told him. "You are perfect exactly the way you are. Some people only notice loud talent because they don't understand quiet brilliance." He held onto me tightly, and in that moment I realized something painful. I had spent years protecting my family from discomfort, while failing to protect my son from them. The next morning, I sat alone at the kitchen counter with a cold cup of coffee and opened my banking app. The scheduled tuition payment for Ava was still pending. For a long moment, I stared at it. Then I canceled it. One tap. That was it, and somehow, that single decision changed everything. For 3 days, nobody contacted me. No apology, no concern for Leo, no acknowledgement of what happened. Just silence. Then on the 4th day, Lily finally texted me. The dance school says Ava's tuition didn't go through. Is there a banking issue? Not, how's Leo? Not, Dad crossed a line. Not even, can we talk? Just money, I replied with one sentence. There's no banking issue. I canceled it. Her response came instantly. You cannot be serious. All this over a joke? A joke? That's what they call humiliating a child in front of an entire table of adults. After that, the messages poured in nonstop. My mother texted me paragraphs about how talented Ava was and how much pressure Lily was under. She reminded me that I had a stable job, a nice home, and, more than enough, to help. As if my hard work automatically made me responsible for everyone else's life. That evening, my father called. His voice was calm, but underneath it was pure anger. You're letting emotions cloud your judgment, he said. Family helps family. I finally asked the question I should have asked years ago. Why is it always me paying for Lily's problems? There was a long pause. Then he answered coldly, because you can. That was it. No gratitude, no appreciation, no respect, just entitlement. To them, my success wasn't something I earned. It was simply a resource they believed they had permanent access to. The next day, my mother showed up at my house carrying a cherry pie like she was walking into a peaceful family visit instead of a disaster she helped create. She sat at my kitchen table talking about how devastated Lily was and how confused Ava felt. Finally, I interrupted her. Why does everyone care about Ava's feelings? I asked, but nobody cares about Leo's. She looked genuinely confused. He's young, she said softly. He'll forget. Forget. Children don't forget moments that teach them their voice doesn't matter. They remember exactly who protected them and who stayed silent. I wrapped the untouched pie back into foil and handed it to her. You need to leave, I said quietly. Before walking out, she looked at me and said, I hope you come to your senses before you ruin this family. But the truth was, this family had been broken long before I stopped paying for dance lessons. A few days later, my parents came over again claiming they wanted to clear the air. My mother brought a board game for Leo. My father acted unusually calm, too calm. At first, everything seemed normal. Leo sat in the living room playing with my mother while I cleaned dishes in the kitchen. My father casually mentioned needing the bathroom, and I pointed him down the hallway. A minute passed, then another. No toilet flush, no running water, just silence. Then I heard it, a drawer opening. My stomach dropped. I rushed down the hallway and found my father standing inside my office holding my personal finance folder in his hands. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then he casually said, I just wanted to see if you could really afford to stop helping. I felt physically sick. My mother appeared behind him, and one look at her face told me she already knew exactly what he was doing. That was the moment everything became crystal clear. They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as a bank account. I pointed toward the front door. Get out. My father scoffed like I was overreacting. But I didn't care anymore. You do not get to humiliate my son, invade my privacy, and still expect access to my life, I said. After they left, I sat alone in complete silence for nearly an hour. And then I made another decision. I drove straight to my parents' house and demanded my spare keys back. My father called me ridiculous. My mother begged me to calm down. But for once, I didn't bend. You distracted my child so you could search through my personal records, I told them. You don't get access to my home anymore. Eventually, my mother handed over the keys. That night, I changed every lock, every password, every emergency contact, and then I blocked their numbers. It hurt more than I expected. No matter how toxic people are, cutting off your own family leaves a wound. But deep down, I knew I wasn't losing family. I was escaping manipulation disguised as family obligation. After that, Lily started posting passive-aggressive comments online about selfish people abandoning family. My mother kept trying to contact me through distant relatives, insisting the whole thing had been misunderstood. But I stayed firm. Then about a week later, I heard that Ava had to quit dance classes because Lily couldn't afford the tuition anymore. And for the first time in years, I didn't rescue them. Not because I hated them, but because I finally understood something important. Saving people who constantly disrespect you doesn't make you kind. It makes you exhausted. Meanwhile, something beautiful started happening inside our home. Peace returned. Leo laughed more. He spread his books and model cars across the dining table without worrying about being mocked. He started talking more openly, smiling more freely. It was like removing constant criticism finally gave him room to breathe. Then a few weeks later, his school held a science fair. Leo spent days building his project almost entirely on his own. He stayed up sketching designs, testing ideas, and carefully fixing every mistake without giving up. And when the winners were announced, he won. I'll never forget the way his face lit up as he ran toward me holding that award in his hands. In that moment, I realized something powerful. Children don't need constant praise to thrive. They need safety. They need someone who believes in them when the world makes them question themselves. That night, as Leo excitedly explained every detail of his project over dinner, I looked around our quiet little kitchen and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Real peace. I used to think keeping the family together was the most important thing. Now I understand something different. Sometimes love means setting boundaries. Sometimes protecting your child requires disappointing other people. And sometimes the strongest thing a parent can do is finally say enough.